Calling a bike a sports tourer is a bit like saying that you start wearing cardigans because they're comfortable. Sports tourers often in the past have been not quite kind of heroic enough to join that kind of the motorcycle machismo club, and at the same time not quite ready yet for the sort of the beard and the Bluetooth touring thing. And touring is a weird thing anyway, because you can go touring on anything. If you're young enough and supple enough and committed enough, you can tour on any kind of bike, in the same way as if you're still spirited enough, you can go touring and you can ride touring bikes in a very, very sporty way. So it's just one of those, it's just a really kind of odd phrase, and it feels to me like it's time we start trying to think of a new word for it, really. So instead of sports touring, I'd like to start to think, why don't we call them roadsters, or just call them sports bikes, because really that's what these things are. As the sports bikes like the ZX10 or kind of the other bikes have evolved more into track bikes, these things are sportier than what we used to call sports bikes. This new Ninja 1000 SX makes 140 horsepower, which is as much as sports bikes used to make not that long ago. It's got the electronics and the chassis and the suspension and the brakes and the cornering ABS. That means it handles better than most sports bikes did a few years ago. This is not, to call this a sports tourer is really selling it short. The reality is, it's a sports bike that's just a little bit more comfortable. It's a sports bike that you can use every day for commuting on. It's a sports bike that you can take a pillion on and just have a really good time, sort of solo or two up. And there's a lot in this now. This has gone really, this new generation has gone from being the fared version of Kawasaki Z1000 to being kind of a proper bike in its own right. And the change in name sort of reflects that. Kawasaki have sort of rationalised their naming a little bit. So they've probably got a more complex version of this, but the simple version seems to be that if it's got a fairing, it's now a Ninja. If it hasn't got a fairing, it's a Z. If they're not quite sure what to call it, it's a Versys. So this is the new Ninja 1000 SX, and the styling's been sharpened up a bit. It looks a little bit more like the other Ninjas. It's got kind of the slightly sportier fairing. It's got a low screen, although the screen is adjustable and it's really simple. There's kind of a button here, and just like that. But at the same time, it's got a wider, comfier seat. It's also got a wider, comfier pillion seat. There's a couple of seats available. There's what they call the comfort seat, which is slightly taller, and then there's what they call the middle seat, which is a little bit lower, a little bit narrower, for those people who just need a bit more confidence. And that's just that's kind of the styling is part of a whole host of changes. It's now got LED headlights. It's got LED rear lights, although the rear light still has that kind of tribute to the Z1000 2003. It's got really nice touches, like the mirrors fold in on a détente thing, which means when you're filtering without panniers, you can just pull the mirrors in and you've got a really nice narrow bike to get through town. And all you do is when you finish filtering, you just flick them out and they go back to the position. It's just stuff like that bikes that evolve like this has just end up with those really nice touches that you just make every ride just a bit more comfortable. And there's a lot on this that's like that. The foot peg position is really good. There's a lot of room to move about. There's a lot of room for your knees. It's a very comfy bike to ride. Works with the handlebar position, but they're still high enough up that you've got you've got a lot of ground clearance. The engine's changed a lot. Kawasaki will tell you the engine's changed a lot because they've had to make it ready for Euro 5, which comes in next year. The reality on the spec sheet is it makes pretty much the same power, pretty much the same torque as it always has done. But what you feel now, as in a lot of the latest bikes, is the latest kind of fueling, the latest ignition systems. It fuels really, really, really sweetly, really smoothly, and it's that four-cylinder thing. We live in a world where people talk about twins and character, and we love twins and we love character, but there are certain moments when you're pulling out of your 358th hairpin bend of an afternoon. And all you want is an engine that will pull from 1500 RPM to 7000 RPM in third gear and just do it without any fuss. And that's what these engines, it's just a lovely 4-cylinder smoothness, no glitches in power, no burps, no horrible, it just does what you want. And when you open the throttle sharply, it just goes like stink, as you would hope it was, because it makes 140 horsepower. The other thing that's new for this year, it's now got assisted clutch and a slipper clutch. The claim is the assisted clutch, whereas the slipper clutch stops the back end hopping about when you change down at high engine speeds. The assisted clutch means when you accelerate hard, it actually prevents the clutch slipping a bit. It now also uses 3 springs instead of 6, which Kawasaki claim means you've got a lighter clutch action. It doesn't feel much lighter to me, but you know, it's probably degrees. It's also got an up and down quick shifter now. And it's not a bad unit. Your quick shifters take a bit of getting used to. Some bikes are better than others. This one's less clunky than, say, the one on the BMW. It's not quite as good as the one on the Honda Fireblade. It's somewhere in between. If this were your bike, after 2 weeks you'd have got used to it. You know when it works, you know when it doesn't. It just feels natural. On the road test, it always takes a little bit of time to acclimatise. The other new thing, it's got a really nice TFT dash. With lots of functions on, really easy to sort of scroll through, really easy to find the information you want. A lot of bikes get this wrong. You know, they make it too complicated or too many buttons on the switch gear. You can't find what you're doing. This is just really simple. It's got 2 screens. You've got sports screen or touring screen you can switch between, and then all sort of various functions you want to look at within there. It's also got, as a function, the new electronics this year. It has a 6-axis IMU, which I don't understand what that means either, but essentially it allows Kawasaki to have more sensitive traction control, more sensitive lean sensitive ABS, lean angle sensitive ABS. It's also got electronic throttle bodies now, sort of ride-by-wire, which allows it to have cruise control. And again, cruise control is one of those things, when you're touring, great. But a lot of people think, do I really need cruise control? Do I use cruise control on a bike? If you've ever been stuck in mile after mile after mile of average speed cameras, you realise just how good cruise control is. And it works really, again, it's really intuitive, it's really simple to use. The chassis is basically the same. The suspension's had a slight tweak. The front forks have got a slightly different damping, which just allows them to come back up quicker. They've also reduced the trail on this. One of the criticisms of the previous model of this bike was that the steering just felt a bit odd, a bit clumsy at low speed. Just needed a bit of a kind of heavy hand to get it steering, and then it would sort of flop in. And no one was quite sure whether it was the tyres or whether it was the dimensions. The tyres have changed on this. They're now Bridgestone S22s, which is kind of Bridgestone sports tyre. Special construction for this bike. The reduction in trail, in theory, will help speed up the steering a bit. The trade-off for that is that you may get a bit of high-speed instability, very, very high speed, and that probably contributes to the fact that Kawasaki still, on this bike, you can only run it with either panniers or a top box. You can't run panniers and a top box, which you can on the Versys, for example. And the reason for that is that they say if you're running all 3, there's a worry that it may become unstable at very high speed. You might argue that you'd rather have three boxes of luggage and only do 120 because you never really go more than 100 anyway, rather than only be able to have 2 boxes of luggage and have the potential to do 160. Kawasaki aren't going to let you do that. So you can either have boxes or you can have the top box. So that's kind of all the stuff that's on it. I guess the next question is, does it all work? Well, we spent all day yesterday riding around the mountains. We're in Córdoba in sort of northern Spain, and we did 250 kilometers, all kinds of roads, a lot of very, very tight hairpins, a lot of slightly faster open roads, and it's all I can say. It's a really easy bike to ride. That's the thing that sums it up, which I guess for this kind of bike is exactly what you want. It's comfortable. There's nothing that stands out. Nothing, you know. There was no point where you're just thinking, oh, I can't see the mirrors, or the gearbox is stiff, or the suspension's not working. And those kind of blind hairpin roads, where you're going up and down a hillside, where you're riding you're tired and you're riding badly and you're holding the brake on into corners when you know you shouldn't be, and you can do all that stuff. You can ride like a tired idiot, and it just does what you want it to do. And I think for this kind of bike, that's a really nice position to be in. It also goes as fast as you'd like. It handles really well. The brakes are great. The ABS isn't too intrusive. The only thing we couldn't really test, because press launch riding isn't like normal riding, the fuel consumption figures we were getting from it were in the kind of mid 40s to the gallon, and these days I'd expect most bikes to be doing 50 plus. You know, one of the benefits of a lot of the emissions stuff that we have on bikes now is that they tend to be a bit more fuel efficient. There are 3 versions of it. There's the basic version of the bike, which in white or green is 10,999. It's an extra 200 quid if you want it in this colour. And then there's a performance edition which has a Kropovich end can and a smoked screen and a tank pad and frame sliders. And then there's a touring edition which has the panniers, heated grips, sat-nav mount. Each of those special editions are £1,000 extra, or there's a performance touring edition which is £2,000 extra, which has a lot. So it's got a taller screen, it's got the sat-nav mount, it's got panniers, it's got everything. And that comes in at 12,999. And the bikes are available, I think, mid-February to March. And there's some Kawasaki, as ever, have got PCP deals and whatever. Check their website, check the piece in BikeSocial, and details are all there. Sum it up, good bike, comfy, fast, all works, lots of ergonomics, lots of careful thought gone into it. I'm really impressed. I can't wait to ride one in the UK on the roads where I normally ride, just to judge it against everything else. Yeah, it should be great.